Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every human journey when the noise fades, the chatter disappears, and silence becomes the only companion. It is in that very silence that the seeds of greatness are sown. While others chase crowds and approval, the one who walks alone begins to understand that success is not found in popularity, but in purpose. You may be tempted to think that isolation is a weakness. You may look around and wonder, why am I the only one standing here? But I say to you, some of the most powerful minds in history were shaped not by the warmth of friendship, but by the fire of solitude. They were not discouraged by the absence of voices around them. They were encouraged by the voice within. Do not fear the empty room, for it is in that room that vision is born. It is there that discipline is developed and character is revealed. The person who can walk alone and still keep moving forward is the person who does not need validation to act, nor applause to believe. Those who depend on others for strength will crumble when others disappear, but the one who has mastered their own mind can stand when the world sits, can rise when the world falls, and can create when the world complains. You do not need many to go far. You only need clarity of desire, definiteness of purpose, and faith in your inner power. Friends may come, friends may go, but principles endure. And those who are anchored to their principles will find that time favors them, life respects them, and destiny rewards them. The mountain does not care how many climb it. It only honors the one who keeps climbing. So if you find yourself alone, do not weep, do not beg, do not break, stand tall, for solitude is not your punishment. It is your preparation, and the world has never ignored a person who refused to be ignored. The world does not belong to the one with many allies. It belongs to the one with an unbreakable will. Solitude can be a source of power, not loneliness. It is one of the most misunderstood conditions of human experience. From a very early age, people are conditioned to associate worth with association, to believe that the more people they have around them, the more valued they must be, but that belief is a deception. True power does not come from the crowd. It comes from the clarity of thought that only silence can offer. When one is alone, there is no need to impress, no pressure to conform, no fear of rejection. In that sacred space, the mind is free to observe, to question, and to grow. When the noise of others fades, you begin to hear your own voice. That voice, quiet and persistent, carries the truth of who you are and what you're capable of. Most people run from solitude because they have not yet made peace with their own thoughts. But for the one who dares to stay, to sit with the discomfort of being alone, something extraordinary begins to happen. Awareness sharpens, confidence emerges, purpose becomes clearer. You are no longer distracted by the opinions of others. You are no longer bound by their expectations. In that moment, you stop seeking approval and start seeking mastery. History is filled with individuals who were ignored, rejected, or isolated by society. Yet it was during those very moments of solitude that they discovered their mission. Great writers, thinkers, inventors, and leaders often found their strength not when surrounded by others, but when left to themselves. That isolation was not their weakness, it was their transformation. The hours spent in silence became the foundation of their vision, the crucible for their strength, and the birthplace of their power. To mistake solitude for loneliness is to misunderstand its purpose. Loneliness is the hunger for connection. Solitude is the presence of inner connection. Loneliness drains you. Solitude builds you. When you are lonely, you seek something outside of yourself to complete you. But when you are grounded in solitude, you realize you already possess everything you need within. You no longer chase what others have. You create what only you can build. Solitude teaches self-reliance. It forces you to listen, to observe your own patterns, your own voice, your own values, and in doing so, it gives you something that cannot be taught by others, inner conviction, the kind of conviction that does not tremble in the face of opposition, the kind of belief that continues to act when no one else believes, the kind of faith that says, even if I stand alone, I will not fall. When you learn to draw strength from solitude, you become less reactive and more intentional. Your energy is no longer scattered among meaningless conversations or shallow relationships. Instead, it is focused, directed, and channeled toward your purpose. The person who commands their time alone commands their destiny. They do not beg for guidance. They create their own path. They are not shaped by the world. They shape the world with their presence. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a preparation. It refines your character. It awakens your mind, it strengthens your spirit, and while others may rely on the opinions of the crowd, the one who has mastered solitude stands firm in their truth, undistracted and undeterred. They do not need to be seen to know their value. They do not need to be surrounded to feel whole. They have become their own source of light, and that light, once awakened, cannot be ignored. Greatness often grows in isolation. Not in the spotlight, not in applause, not in crowded rooms filled with distractions, but in the quiet corners of life where discipline is born and desire is tested. It is easy to think that greatness is the result of external attention, that it is tied to who notices you, who supports you, or who believes in you. But the truth is far more demanding. Greatness is not given, it is forged. And that forging happens most powerfully in moments when no one is watching. Isolation removes the crutches. It eliminates the noise. It leaves behind only you, your thoughts, and the challenge of becoming what you were meant to be. Many people crumble in isolation because they have not yet developed the inner foundation required to stand without support. But for those who understand its value, isolation becomes a training ground. It is where you meet the real version of yourself, stripped of validation, approval, and applause. It is where you come face with your fears, your doubts, and your potential. The person who grows in isolation becomes dangerous, not in violence, but in value. Their mind is no longer shaped by trends or opinions, but by purpose. They have spent time in the shadows refining their skills, questioning their beliefs, building their inner strength. And because they have done the work in the dark, they are unshaken when the light eventually finds them. Their greatness was not handed to them. It was earned in silence. Many of the world's greatest contributions were not created in chaos, but in quiet. Great books were written in small, dimly lit rooms. Groundbreaking ideas were born during long walks taken alone. New inventions, revolutionary art, philosophical breakthroughs, all emerged from the minds of individuals who were willing to spend time away from the crowd, immersed in deep work and deeper thought. Isolation gave them space to think, space to imagine, space to become. In isolation, there are no shortcuts. You cannot fake progress when there is no one to impress. The only measure is effort. The only standard is truth. And that is what makes the growth so powerful. It is real. It is earned. It is not a mask worn to win the favor of others. It is an identity formed by enduring the process, the long days, the quiet nights. The discipline to keep going without praise. The person who seeks greatness must stop seeking comfort. And nothing is more uncomfortable than being alone with yourself, knowing that everything depends on what you do next. But therein lies the opportunity. Because if you can find the strength to move forward when no one is cheering, you will never again need applause to succeed. If you can stay disciplined when no one is watching, you will always be prepared when they finally do. Isolation is not the absence of opportunity. It is the foundation of readiness. It is where habits are built, where clarity is sharpened, and where resilience is developed. The person who embraces isolation does not fear failure, because they have failed 1,000 times in private before ever stepping into public view. They do not fear success either, because they are not addicted to attention. They are committed to purpose. So remember this: greatness does not require a stage. It does not require an audience. It does not require permission. It only requires a decision to use the time others waste, to build what others fear, to become what others doubt. And that decision is most often made in isolation, where no one sees you, but everything within you is finally revealed. Your environment does not define your destiny. Your mind does. Too many people surrender their future to the conditions around them. They believe that where they come from, who they know, and what resources they currently lack are permanent limitations, but those are illusions. The only true limitation is the one you accept in your own mind. Every great success story begins with someone who decided to think differently, regardless of their surroundings. They looked beyond the noise, the poverty, the rejection, the lack of support, and they dared to believe that their thoughts could shape a different reality. A person is not a product of their circumstances. They are a product of their choices, and choices begin with thoughts. If you allow the outside world to dictate how you think, then you will remain trapped by it. But if you learn to discipline your mind, to guard it from doubt, fear, and negativity, then even the harshest environment cannot stop your rise. The mind is the command center of all human action. It is the birthplace of desire, the engine of faith, and the architect of achievement. It is not your location that determines your future. It is your imagination. History has proven this over and over again. There have been individuals who came from broken homes, violent neighborhoods, and hopeless conditions who still rose to greatness, not because they were lucky, but because they refused to let their surroundings define their thinking. They chose thoughts of strength over surrender, vision over victimhood, progress over pity, and because they did, they changed the direction of their lives. Your environment may explain your starting point, but it never justifies your stopping point. If you give power to your environment, you will always have an excuse to fail. But if you give power to your mind, you will always find a reason to win. The one who masters their mind gains freedom. Freedom from limitations, freedom from dependency, freedom from external control. That freedom is the beginning of power, because once you know that you can think your way forward, nothing behind you can hold you back. Do not underestimate the influence of your thoughts. A single powerful idea can change the course of your life. But only if you believe in it, only if you protect it, only if you act on it. The environment may offer comfort, but comfort never leads to greatness. The mind must lead the way, even when the path is dark, even when others cannot see what you see. Those who follow their mind instead of their environment are the ones who shape history, not the ones who wait for the world to change, but the ones who change themselves and then change the world. External conditions can delay you, but they cannot deny you, unless you allow them to. And once the mind is fixed on a purpose, once it becomes obsessed with a goal, no obstacle can stand forever in its way. The mind will find a path. It will build one if necessary, but it will not quit. Because it knows that destiny is not determined by environment, it is earned through relentless thought, focused effort, and unwavering belief. To rise above your environment, you must rise within. Build a mind so strong, so determined, and so faithful to your vision that no amount of chaos around you can break the order within you. Because in the end, it is not the place you come from, it is the place you decide to go. And the decision begins not with where you stand, but with how you think. Emotional independence builds unshakable confidence. It is the foundation upon which true power rests. When a person is emotionally dependent on others for validation, comfort, or identity, they live at the mercy of shifting winds. One compliment lifts them, one criticism breaks them. They are not free. They are not in control. They are prisoners of opinion, feedback, and approval. But the one who has trained themselves to think, act, and feel independently, regardless of who is watching or who is supporting, is the one who becomes truly confident. Emotional independence is not coldness, it is not withdrawal from connection, it is strength. It is the ability to stand alone in conviction when the world stands against you. It is the calm mind in the face of chaos. The disciplined will that is not rattled by rejection, the steady spirit that does not beg to belong. This kind of confidence does not come from being liked. It comes from being anchored to purpose. It is born not in comfort, but in challenge. To build emotional independence, you must stop outsourcing your worth. You must stop handing your peace to people who do not understand your mission. No one else is responsible for how you feel. No one else is responsible for how you think. As long as your emotional state is determined by someone else's words, actions, or opinions, your power is divided. But when you take full responsibility for your emotions, you take back your power. You become whole. This wholeness is rare. Most are looking to be completed by attention, by relationships, by acceptance, but completion comes from within. It comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you're building, regardless of who stands beside you or who walks away. It is a quiet confidence, one that does not need to be announced, one that does not shout. It simply walks with certainty, it chooses its path, and it stays the course. Emotional independence means you no longer need agreement to act. You no longer need company to keep going. You no longer need comfort to stay committed. And because of that, you become unstoppable. The opinions of others become just that, opinions, not facts, not orders. Not commands, just noise, and the emotionally independent mind knows how to filter that noise. It does not absorb what weakens it. It does not entertain what distracts it. It stays focused. It stays grounded. This kind of strength must be developed. It does not happen by accident. It comes from struggle, from disappointment, from learning to sit with your emotions and not run from them. It is earned in moments when everything in you wants to quit, but you choose instead to endure. To learn, to sharpen, to rise, and the more you do that, the less you need from the outside world to feel powerful on the inside. The world will always have something to say, but the emotionally independent person knows that the loudest voice should be their own. Not because they are arrogant, but because they are aligned with values, aligned with purpose, aligned with truth. And once you are aligned, your confidence is no longer based on performance. It is based on identity. Not the identity others give you, but the one you have claimed for yourself. That is how confidence becomes unshakable, not by pretending to be fearless, not by avoiding failure, but by knowing that no matter what happens, approval or rejection, gain or loss, you will not break. Because your strength does not come from who stands beside you. It comes from who you've become when you stood alone. Purpose attracts the right people. Desperation repels them. When someone is driven by a clear and meaningful purpose, their energy resonates on a frequency that draws others in naturally. This is not about chasing attention or begging for approval. It is about holding a vision so compelling that it becomes a magnet for like-minded individuals. Purpose creates alignment, it creates confidence, it creates an undeniable presence that cannot be ignored. People are drawn to strength, to clarity, to conviction, not to neediness or uncertainty. Desperation, on the other hand, creates a different energy altogether. It is born from fear, insecurity, and lack. When a person acts out of desperation, they broadcast signals of weakness and uncertainty. Instead of attracting support, they push others away. They confuse others with mixed messages, trying too hard to please or control. Desperation is a force that repels because it lacks the foundation of self-respect and inner power. Those who understand this principle focus first on cultivating their own purpose. They dedicate themselves to growth, to vision, to mastery. They refuse to settle for shallow relationships or empty approval. Instead, they wait, patiently and intentionally, for the right connections to come. These connections are not random. They are the result of deliberate alignment between purpose and people. The right people do not drain energy, they fuel it. They challenge and uplift. They support progress and honor values. When you have a strong sense of purpose, you become a leader in your own life. Leadership is not about controlling others. It is about inspiring them. It is about setting an example that others want to follow. And that example begins with your relationship to yourself. Are you acting from a place of strength or weakness? From confidence or desperation? From clarity or confusion? The key to attracting the right people is to become the kind of person they want to be around. This means mastering yourself first. It means developing emotional independence, mental discipline, and unwavering faith in your path. When you do this, you create a force field that draws in those who belong in your circle, those who resonate with your values and vision. These people become allies, mentors, friends, and partners who share your commitment to growth and excellence. Trying to force connections out of desperation is exhausting and fruitless. It leads to disappointment, confusion, and compromise, but living from purpose creates peace, clarity, and momentum. You no longer chase what is missing, you attract what is aligned. And this is how lasting relationships are built, not on need, but on mutual respect and shared mission. Remember, the energy you emit shapes the world around you. When you hold purpose clearly in your heart and mind, you become a beacon. That beacon will attract the right people at the right time. People who will walk beside you, not weigh you down. And together, you will achieve more than any one person could alone.